Morning, folks. It's another Monday Musings. We're actually back on track properly now on Mondays. Monday Musings for this week actually. It's actually an article I'm in the middle of writing at the moment. So looking at physical training, supplemental training within martial arts. So as we all know, martial arts is a very physical thing. Okay, you don't have purely mental martial arts. It's all about physicality. At the end of the day, whether you're working in a sporting context, a health context, or a self-protection context, or whichever context you're working in, there is some aspect of training that revolves around or is rooted at some point in confrontation with violence and the physicality that's related to that. So, in my opinion, in fact, not just my opinion, I would state it as fact, you need to supplement your martial arts training with some other type of training to improve your physical abilities, okay? Particularly if you are training for sport, you cannot excel unless you have the better physique than the other guy, in most competitive fighting formats, if a fighter cannot win purely based on skill or knockout power, then they need to outlast the other guy. There's all manner of sort of things like that are taken into account. If you don't put the work in, you don't get the abilities and the results that come with that. Besides that, if you look in a self-protection based thing, you want to be able to end a fight as quickly as possible. The most efficient way to do that, 9 times out of 10, is to be able to knock the other guy clean out. The top of the list of things that somebody needs to be a threat to you in a fight is consciousness. If they are not conscious, they are not a threat. The legalities of that stripped away, that's the basis. That's the very basic thing behind it, okay? And generally speaking, the easiest way to take away someone's consciousness is to knock them out. And to do that, you need explosive power, and you need to be able to harness that explosive power with a really good shot, usually smack on target where it needs to be, to usually wobble the brain enough that it switches off, okay? So how do you get there? Well, there's loads of different things you can do to train martial arts. One of the unique things about martial arts in general when it comes to training is it doesn't railroad you into one particular way of physically building up your body, okay? You actually need many aspects. So if we look at your general aspects of your basic fitness to start with, so you have cardiovascular endurance, okay? If your heart and lungs work better at getting oxygen around your body in general works better. It works better under stress. It can prepare for stress faster. It can de-stress faster. Explosive strength in your muscles. Okay, so your muscles, you've sort of got two major functions, particularly where fighting is concerned. Explosive strength is key. If you can do an action incredibly explosively with a lot of force behind it, you've got hard punches, hard kicks. And learning to do that in good coordination, so you have an entire good body coordination, there you go, you have good technique. Add on top of that muscular endurance, so being able to do that for more times, okay? Much like with weight training, if you can lift a weight several times in a row, you'll get growth, you'll get results from that, So you have both sort of sides to that. You've then got mobility, so ranges of motion in each joint. You have flexibility, so how stretchy your muscles are, which also helps range of motion in many cases. You're then going to have agility, so your ability to do quite complex tasks, usually at speed. You have coordination, hand-eye coordination generally speaking, so your ability to put point A to point B efficiently and smoothly on target. What else am I missing? Speed, okay? So explosive strength is one thing, but speed is ever so slightly different, because speed is how quickly you go through a complete motion, whereas explosive power is how hard and fast a single muscle group can contract. I'm sure there's something else I'm missing. It may come to me at some point. It's early on a Monday morning, so please bear with me. And then all of that, your body's ability to do all of that is then linked all the way through your central nervous system, primarily through what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is the side of your nervous system that relates to putting your body under stress, preparing for stress. It relates directly to your fight, flight and freeze mechanism, but we'll come to that a bit later on. So different ways of training, different things you should do to enhance yourself as a martial artist. Now, there are people, I've spoken to them over the years, who will tell you that you don't need to do anything else other than training the art that you do for proficiency. In some cases, that is true. I know plenty of guys who may appear slightly out of shape, very capable of putting you on your arse real easily, because their entire body, regardless of the general shape it's in, has been honed to do, very specific things through whatever years of training they've done. Could they benefit from being healthier, fitter, more flexible? Yeah, across the board, but, people's personal life choices are none of my business. But on the whole, I will say irrevocably that you need to do some kind of supplemental training, particularly if you're in martial arts and you want your body to do exactly what you tell it to do, exactly when you need it to do something. You have to do some kind of supplemental training to reinforce that, okay? So different types of training you can do. Very obvious ones are really easy. Cardiovascular based exercises, things like running, swimming, using a bicycle, using a rowing machine, stuff like that. Running's a really good one actually, because through running you can actually work in your sympathetic nervous system more, and your preparation actually, so you can increase the efficiency of your warm-ups through regular running exercises. Now, I don't mean just jogging along for hours at a time. That's actually no good for you long term, and if you get to be my kind of size and weight, it will wear your knees away to nothing. It'll damage your ankles. It's a fairly high impact exercise. With that said, running is a very natural movement, so if you can improve your gait, improve your run, that will only benefit your hips, knees and ankles, also your spine. But on top of that as well, you can run in different ways, okay? So you can run to improve your general endurance, all right? So you can jog for long periods of time, upwards of half an hour to an hour, maybe more, depending on what you want to do. But you can also train in sprints. So you end up training your explosive response. You improve your short-term recovery times, which actually, where fighting is concerned, is probably better. So doing sprints is a very good way of doing it, albeit slightly higher intensity and more. There's more risk involved where injuries are concerned, particularly if you're not used to running. So you've got that to think about as well. Other types of training, you've obviously got strength training. Probably I would say a good 60 to 70% of all martial artists at some point have done some type of strength training that involves using weights or calisthenic exercises to improve their musculature, improve their general skeletal muscular system. What's really interesting about weights actually have multiple benefits, okay? So you are able to, create better neural pathways through weight training. Not as efficiently as doing the actual exercises that you train for, but that's something else entirely as well. But you build the explosive power. You can build muscular endurance by changing the way and the type of training you're doing, the type of load that you're working with. But you also get to engage that sympathetic nervous system. So regular weight training, particularly high intensity, high load weight training, high weight training, is fantastic because it puts your body into a very mild state of fight, flight or freeze. So you can actually get your body used to engaging its adrenal response system through that mindset. The mindset's important. We'll come back to that actually in a bit in regards to weight training, explosive training. Other types of training that you can do to supplement are activity-based training. So you obviously have the martial art that you're practicing, which is very important, but you can also have supplemental activities. So one of the key ones that's been a big staple for me over the years has been parkour, and just general aspects of that I like to include into my training because, it was a big part of my life at one point, for one, and secondly, the benefits from it were fantastic. You learn to massively increase your risk assessing by sight all the time. You massively engage your fight, flight or freeze mechanism and overcome it on a regular basis. And it uses very complex ranges of movement and adaptation through ranges of motion as well, which is incredibly important for martial arts. It allows you to be naturally adaptable. Most parkour free running practitioners, they have some of the best proprioceptive skills that you'll find in almost any kind of physical environment. They're phenomenal at it because it's so normal to do. It really does become second nature. So you have all that. So what's important for martial artists to do? Well, we obviously went over the things like your flexibility, your strength, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the main things that you want to look at, that I'm really, I'm always finding people arguing against is weight training. Okay, so you'll tend to find a lot of people will veer away from weights. Weights will make me slow. Weights will make me sluggish. They'll harm my technique, or I'll lose my flexibility. Nah, get a grip. That's not how weight training works. Okay. They're all myths. All right. You will not become slower from weight training. Okay. You will become slower from not doing fast movements. Okay, so if you weight train regularly, and then everything you do alongside weight training is slow, you're going to be slow. Okay, unless you practice your movements explosively, you're stuffed. All right, you become slower, generally speaking, by being heavier. So you tend to find a lot of people that complain about getting slower aren't used to dealing with weight gain. Okay, so you do have some people that end up overweight and not able to carry their own mass sufficiently. All right, that's not the fault of the muscle that you put on. That's the fault of the extra fat that you put on, usually alongside the muscle. Okay, because your body will increase its fat stores, generally speaking, to match its muscle stores, unless you do something fairly drastic to stop that from happening. That's a whole other subject. But it won't make you slow. Weight training doesn't make you slow. Being slow makes you slow. All right? The only thing that weight training may affect is if you carry a lot more weight, particularly muscle mass, you can lose cardiovascular endurance from it, okay? Which is why in combat sports in particular, there are weight categories, okay? Weight categories are important in combat sports because it levels the playing field a bit. But yeah, in terms of your cardio endurance, it will get affected because more muscle means that you need more oxygen coursing through your bloodstream for the reactions necessary to, you know, create the same amount of force to move the mass around and all that kind of stuff, which will tire you out more unless you train to match it. There is a threshold for that, I believe. I don't think that you could be, say, 24 stone and a proficient marathon runner, for example. It just wouldn't happen. The strain that would put on the body would be ridiculous. But yeah, you can find a happy middle ground. So, for example, I currently weigh 16 stone. I know, push comes to shove, that I can run from where I am now into Birmingham city centre, which is approximately 8.5 miles-ish, I think, along the canal. Would I feel great after doing it? No. Would I be doing it at a marathon runner's, you know, optimum time? No. But could I do it? Yes. I also know that I can carry my weight fairly efficiently when I spar, whilst adding acrobatics and stupid crapping usually for the kids. So, you know, it's doable. There's a way around that there. So yeah, it will affect your endurance to a degree. That's just the way it is. Other than that, affecting flexibility. Can strength training affect flexibility? Yes, it can. If you train heavily and then you don't do anything to stretch and increase your ranges of motion and your mobility after, that's going to cause you problems. If you cause a bit of damage or tearing on the myofascial tissue and it gets knotted, that will affect your flexibility, and over time it will affect your ranges of motion that you've got and all that kind of stuff, okay? So, you know, just train smarter. If you're spending X amount of time lifting weights, you need to spend some time on your rehabilitation afterwards. So you put the work in on your stretching. Stretching on its own, doing pure stretching exercises, that can make up a section, okay? It shouldn't just be 5 minutes at the end, just have a little bit of a pull here and there. You actually should spend time working on flexibility if you want to maintain it at a reasonable level. I can't remember what else, the other myths, but they're sort of like the main ones. So the main ones are generally loss of flexibility, loss of endurance, you know, making you slow. What weight training can do, if you're not careful, is affect your general technical ability. So if you spend more time doing certain ranges of motion with weights and stuff like that, and you don't spend any time working on your technical abilities and your basic form, it doesn't affect your muscles, it affects your central nervous system. So you end up sort of creating the wrong neural pathways for your goals, okay? But central nervous system, we'll go on to that actually because it's very important, okay? So when you do a lot of weight training, to start with, you actually grow your central nervous system more than you do your muscular system itself. And your central nervous system is massively important for training, okay? So, as I mentioned earlier, when you're doing weight training in particular is a really good one, or anything that's going to put you under high stress, so weight training, bag work, pad work, sparring, even stuff like your up and down basics, or if you're doing like a 3K karate and you're going hell for leather at your kion and your kata and your kumite, all that as well will activate your sympathetic nervous system. So, it will bring into focus putting your body under stress, okay? So you have to get ready for that stress. The adrenal system, that'll be a whole other subject for another day, and how that works. But you can activate it. You can activate it through to a degree through conscious action. But your central nervous system creates that mind-muscle connection. Okay, if you've ever read or seen anything from Arnold Schwarzenegger, he always talks about putting your mind in the muscle, and that's exactly what he was referring to. If your central nervous system is more efficient at sort of firing off and sending these electrical signals to your muscles will do a better and more efficient job. Okay, even with the same amount of muscle mass, if the connection, the mind-muscle connection is better, the result is better in terms of explosive power and endurance and stuff like that. So yeah, explosive movements can sort of help that central nervous system, that sympathetic nervous system that you want to activate. When you are doing a lot of training, particularly if you're a newbie, you'll hear a term in a lot of gyms, newbie gains. So when you've got people that are just starting out in their weightlifting journey, like their plateaus are almost non-existent. They just keep improving. It doesn't seem to stop. And it's because their nervous system is actually creating all these pathways. Their size and shape doesn't drastically change. That will plateau out eventually, and then it is down to reinforcing those connections, and the muscles will build and grow over time. But yeah, so you have that sort of, that CNS does a lot, and particularly where martial arts is concerned, it's very important because that mind-muscle connection and that ability to engage your sympathetic nervous system, you couple that with correct mindset when training, and you're actually able to emulate to quite a high degree, particularly if you're a combat sports practitioner, and if you're working in if you're training in to deal with realistic violence, you can put your mind into that mindset. Combat sports do it probably more efficiently and easier because you just jump in the ring, you're sparring. Somebody's trying to punch your head or kick you around. Your body will put itself into a state of survival and focus and purpose for that. But you can engage your mind as well. So, particularly if you do a decent explosive warm-up, that can improve everything and get you ready to work. But yeah, if you have that mindset when you train as well, so you're not just going through the motions of, just block this and counter with this or whatever. If you put yourself in a sort of predatory, aggressive mindset, that doesn't mean you've got to smack the snot out of your partners, the people you train with, but if you've got that intent, that mental intent while you go through the motions, even if you're doing the motions fairly slowly and controlled, you're still creating the correct neural pathways for that sympathetic nervous system. So when brown meets fan, and you need it, it's there. It's what you've trained to do, that muscle memory will take over. And it's not just muscle memory, it's your whole nervous system is ready to go. It's geared towards it, so it does it more smoothly. Makes it a lot easier for people to, as they say, flip that switch. You hear it a lot, and it's usually when it comes to training kids, because you can't teach kids to be violent, aggressive individuals. They don't have the mental maturity really to understand the bigger picture with that. But when you hear people trying to coach kids, particularly in sports, and they're like, they've either got that killer instinct or not. It's rubbish. You can train the response from anyone in any way. You just have to be able to find the right way to coach it, the right angle to coach it from, and do it enough times it becomes natural. That's it. What else was I going to look at? Oh yeah, warm-ups. So warm-ups are a really important thing for me. Okay, I like to have a good healthy warm-up in any class that I run. I have a very specific and particular warm-up game, and I use it for just about everything. It's very simple. I get everybody to lay down on the floor, make sure they've got enough space, and I give them 3 basic commands: on your feet, on your front, and on your back. That's it. So people either have to be standing, be laid down on their front, or be laid down on their back. How they get to those positions is completely up to them. We start it off slow, but I usually make them do it as quickly and I say as smoothly as they can. Okay, so they find out the best ways for them to move, and I increase the intensity and the difficulty in changes as I go. And what I do that for is to get people moving, but it also increases nerve impulse speed, increases their ability to listen and take command, and all that kind of stuff. So a general warm-up, a good warm-up should increase blood flow, enhance nerve impulse speed, increase nutrient delivery to the muscles. It makes what's it? Something to do with oxygen. That's it. It facilitates the release of oxygen from hemoglobin and I think ferroglobin, is it? If your body can process and release oxygen from the hemoglobin, it means that there's better reactions going on in the muscles to produce the energy you need to, move. But also getting a decent warm-up in will increase your joint lubrication, your ranges of motion, your general joint resiliency, reduces your risk of injury. Now I know that there's people who are very against warm-ups in general. The people that are against tend to be more towards the extreme end of the dealing with realistic violence. So the general argument I tend to find is that there's 2 main arguments. Number one, people should already be in shape and stay in shape for whatever's going on. I've seen that from some combative guys and stuff like that, which I can understand to an extent, but if you're a coach, your responsibility is to look after your participants. So get them warm so they're not going to get hurt. On the other side of that, I've had people saying that you don't get the opportunity for a warm-up in a violent confrontation, so why do it in your class? I can understand that as well. However, you are still in an environment where you practice. So from my own personal point of view, I would rather train with my body at its best and safest, with the least risk of injury, so that if accidents happen, and they do, when you practice anything, particularly in martial arts, if you're dealing with unpredictable violence and things like that, or you start working with different body types and you're basically doing things that are designed to hurt other people anyway, there is a risk of injury. So reduce that risk of injury with a good warm-up. If your joints are more supple, they can take just that little bit more strain while you're furiously tapping, shouting, mate, or asking your partner to stop before twang, they snap and go. But also, if you've got that better nerve impulse speed, if you're training through, very basic partner work, if you're working on things like flinch responses, if you're working on sparring, if you're doing stuff like that, if your nervous system is working faster or more efficiently, you work faster and more efficiently. And then, when it comes to after you finish that training, and your parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, which is your rest and digest part, you will actually get better long-term growth during your rest period, okay? Which means that you get more improvement. So I understand being able to go from completely stationary to, proficient straight away, but also, you have to understand that if you're training, your goal should be to get the best amount of growth possible. And I don't mean growth as in physical, muscular growth and stuff like that. I mean growth in general. So your parasympathetic nervous system is essential because it doesn't It doesn't just mean rest and digest in here. You rest and digest in here through that nervous system as well. So if you're firing off the maximum amount, you know, of mental energy up here, and you know everything else is working, when you rest and digest, you'll take in information better. Your central nervous system will make its connections better and more efficient. All right, so you end up building an environment where you can potentially hit harder for longer, where you can move faster and more fluidly, and all that kind of stuff. There's loads to actually think about for it. So, you know, I've sort of hit a half an hour mark already. I could probably lecture on this for hours, and I'd still be just telling you why warm-ups are essential. But yeah, so we'll wrap it up. If you are practicing the martial arts, you need to train in a supplemental activity. Do something else, okay? I don't care whether you run, you swim, you cycle, I don't know, trot around on a horse or whatever. You do something that causes you some physical strain somewhere, okay? On top of that, I massively encourage everybody to do some form of weight training. Whether that's you buy some cheap dumbbells or you work with some basic calisthenic exercises. The internet is full of calisthenic workouts that require zero weights whatsoever. Utilise that, okay? It will only benefit your martial arts. It will only benefit your martial arts. So do it. And yeah, obviously you still need to train specific to what you do. So as a martial artist, for what I do, I recommend get a punch bag, okay? If you're a karateka, even if you're not a karateka actually, get a makiwara, build a makiwara, so you can work your entire body, getting used to impact, following through on your impacts and things like that. I mean that's a whole subject in itself. But yeah, work on that. Oh, what else is muscular training good for? So one of the things I forgot about for weight training actually is one of the most efficient exercises for increasing your bone density. Okay, your bones are put under a lot more strain from lifting heavy weights than it is from smashing it against things. So yeah, if you want to build your bone density up, one of the best ways to do it is by lifting heavy stuff. So yeah, work on those different things, work on your different aspects of your physicality and stuff like that. And I mean, if it's something that really interests you, really look into the science behind it, because sports science has come on leaps and bounds over the years. And we're at a point where you cannot ignore how useful it is to your martial arts training. So incorporate it, you know, you'd be an absolute fool to ignore it. One of the common things you'll tend to find is that people will say, well, if they were doing it X amount of hundreds, thousands of years ago, why change it? Why change it is because we're smarter now, okay? We know more at a cellular level how these things affect us. You would be an absolute idiot to discard that knowledge, you know, particularly where karate and that is concerned. It's all based around adaptation. It's updated itself almost every decade since you know, before World War II. But I mean, if you look at the evolution or de-evolution in some cases, again, another subject for another day, of karate, since World War II, there's been a lot of drastic changes across the board, and the types of information that are available have changed drastically across the board. You are no longer beholden to just agreeing with one bloke at the top and assuming that his knowledge is absolute, because, as we all know, no single person's knowledge is absolute. And the best teachers are the ones that understand that, and they'll try to point you in the direction or try to improve themselves so that they can improve others through that, you know. So yeah, we'll leave it there for today. Like I said, I could go on forever about this, to be honest with you. Again, For those that aren't aware, I've been sort of referring to notes because I have a tendency to ramble. Even with notes, I've rambled today. So yeah, we'll try and keep these a bit shorter. Yeah, train safe, train hard, get in the gym, lift some stuff. If not, lift some stuff anyway. Find a rock or some logs, I don't know. But yeah, get on it. Yeah, I'm gonna get my own workout in now while I've got time. Enjoy your Monday and the rest of your week, folks. Take care.